Psychic Inside Show. My name is Joelle, and I am the Viberarian. I am here to elevate, enlighten, and empower with information that I hope that you find uplifting and helpful for you as you are going along your journey. Every Tuesday evening, I'm here on the Viberary Radio Network on Blog Talk Radio to talk with people about their journey discovering their psychic gifts and abilities. Now, I believe everyone is psychic. You just may not realize it. So every week I bring people on who are sharing from their experiences with the hope and goal that you will hear something that sounds familiar, possibly about your own experience, and that you will be enlarged from what you hear. The line for the show this evening, if you want to call in with a question, is 646-787-8436. And you can just press pound at 1 and pound key if you want to come on the air to ask a question during the show. And I've also got a chat room here available during this broadcast, so if you would like to pop in there, it's on blogtalkradio.com/theviberary. And that is TheViberary. Now, I am putting together a community of people I like to call the Good Vibe Tribe, and our goal is to uplift each other's energy. I'm asking if you would join me in helping to do this. Join my Facebook page, The Viberarian, or follow me on Instagram and Twitter. If you see something that you think needs to be passed on and amplified, definitely tag me, get lifted, or hashtag Good Vibe Tribe so that I'll see it. I absolutely want to be able to spread those positive messages as far as possible. If you are in Facebook or on YouTube, you can also catch all of these broadcasts that are the interviews on the programming at any time on the replay on the Viberary YouTube channel, and also iTunes in the podcast directory and Stitcher. So if you're a person who likes to download things and listen in your car, all of the episodes of this show are certainly available for you to access at a different point in time. So this evening, I'm very, very excited about the show. Of course, I say that every week, but that's because every week I truly am really eager to have the conversations with my guests on the show. Tonight is no different, and I wanted to share with you that one of my favorite places, you'll hear me talk about this all the time, is the Big Psychic Fair. Atlanta is a wonderful place for the metaphysical community. We've got several thriving metaphysical stores and also psychic fairs and places. It's kind of more normal here to be having conversations about psychic life than you might find in some places. And I've been going to the Big Psychic Fair for probably 20 years now. And over time, I'm talking probably 5 or 6 years ago, I had an encounter that just really shocked me and left my jaw just hanging in amazement. And that was that I sat down to have my palm read. And my guest this evening, Cassandria Hanna, is a palmist and palm reader, and that was who I was sitting across from. And let me tell you, she pulled out this magnifying glass and asked me for my hand. Next thing I know, she was reading everything about my life and how kind of my family dynamic and things that I had already experienced. And it was just the casualest thing as she would say, oh, and so blah, 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 and you have blah, blah. And I'm like, what are you seeing all this in these little tiny lines? So I thought it was so fascinating. And since that time, I have sat across from her on more than one occasion. I have many friends and received the story that is written in their palm. So I'm very excited to welcome you to the Psychic Inside Show this evening. Cassandria Hanna, thank you.
And thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Absolutely. Now, let me tell you, when I see psychics, like even in the time period before there was kind of a forward-facing storefront type of psychic access, you would always see these little signs on a little house by the side of the road that would have a palm on it, and it's a Sister Mary's palm reading the psychic. But it was always kind of this, to my perception, it always seemed kind of like scary or fearful. So I honestly, never thought that I would encounter someone. I think one time at Underground Atlanta, it was kind of more like a entertainment reading. I didn't necessarily feel like the information that was coming out was super valid, but your reading was absolutely different. How did you even begin to come to looking at the palms as a source of information?
Well, I think it evolved after getting involved more with metaphysics. There are many aspects of metaphysics. In fact, when I think of metaphysics, I think of a large, beautiful tree and with strong roots, so the trunk is very large, and branches are going in all directions. And as the tree grows, there are more branches growing. So these branches, in my mindset, represent every aspect of metaphysics: the psychic, the medium, the palmist, the healer, and all the clears. That's clairvoyant, clairaudience, and so on. So that's how I think of it. So it was natural. If I'm in this field, I want to try different things. I'm, based on my hand reading, I'm a person who is interested in many things. It's like you put up a smorgasbord of delicacies, and I don't want just one. I want to just take a look at what's all there and then sample different ones. So that's it. That's how it started. I'll be honest with you. When I first started in this area, because this is completely different from what I used to do, palm reading didn't come up on the register at all. That's something I wasn't really interested in. But I might say it might be a little hereditary because my father was a palm reader. But he wasn't doing it after we were born, my siblings and I. But he was very good at it. He was a clairvoyant also, and I don't know if I come up to the level where he was. I'm only saying that simply because I never saw him read before. But in talking with people who knew of him, they always said, oh, your father was this. Oh, he was so good, Mr. Hanna, so on and so on. So I decided I'm going to give this a try because I wanted to try astrology and other things. I said, well, I'll give it a try. And I took a course, and by the end of the course, I did very well. But after that, I drew a blank. I didn't remember anything. It was like I didn't take it. Yeah, I won't go that far. But I took it, but I didn't feel comfortable enough to call myself a palm reader. So I'm a very competitive partner. Sorry, I'm a very competitive person, and I like to challenge myself. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was wondering. So the course that you took, was it specific to palm reading at that point, or was it more of a? That's
a good question. It was called parapsychology. Always interested in that. I took workshops when I was much younger, just because it was kind of interesting, and I could relate to it in some aspects. But in this course I took, it was a little bit of many things. I Ching, a little astrology, numerology. And I said, this is something interesting. I'm going to give it a try. So you had to take exams on each one. You had to show that you mastered it to a certain degree where you could at least work with it. All right. So everything went very well. All the other things seemed to resonate with me, and I remembered them after the class, after getting the grade and the certificate, except palmistry. And I couldn't understand. So I got another book, and I read through that carefully, and I said, I think I have it. So I said, I'm going to test myself with someone. So I had a doctor's appointment, and I found myself looking at hands, and I was checking myself, going through the review in my mind just to make sure I got it. I started blanks again. I wasn't remembering anything. It was just difficult for me to get. But I hung in there. I decided to start with one thing. And I said, well, I remember some things about the thumb. And I reminded myself, after all, Cassandria, you're not doing a reading. You're just testing, just to see. And plus to see whether people were interested. So I just happened to say to some of the receptionists, and they were young people too, I said, may I see your thumb? I'm studying palmistry. Oh, my God. The whole hand came out. So I felt, maybe people are interested in this. So I remembered 3 basic things to say about the thumb. I said, I'll just tell you a little bit about your thumb. So I told about the thumb's length in comparison to the index finger. The location will determine the type of person you are, and then opening the hand to see whether you are a very generous person, you might be a little gullible in your generosity, or you're closer to one who would be more like a Scrooge. So I remembered that. So I told this person that I went to see the doctor. I looked at his hand. He's a nice person. He's very open. I did the same with him. He just laughed. But a little fascination was in that laugh, I felt. So at the end of that, I came to the girls again, and because I had to set up an appointment, and there were 2 other girls who wanted me to do the same thing. So I said, there's an audience for this, because I didn't think of that when I was taking the course. So I did the same with them. And they said, can you tell me a little more? And they wanted me to read more. So that was like a stimulation. I've got to get going with this. There's an audience for this. So that was my start with it, from difficulty to walking slowly, finally getting it. And I stayed with it until I felt comfortable enough. And then I started going at it a little bit at a time. This, because it's an art form and it's ancient, if you're going to be good at what you do, it's going to take time, and it's going to involve regular practice. You can't just do it and think you have it, because there are other things you have to tie in. Yeah. So that's how I got started, and ever since then, I have enjoyed it so much. Sometimes I'll meet people, and I'm fascinated with hands, and I see their hands, and I say, I have to tell them this. So I just talk with them briefly to see if they're a little open, and then I immediately tell what I do, and the hand comes up. I have not met anybody that would pull their hands in. And people who have strong feelings about anything metaphysical, they're not open to it. I see them looking at their hands. They don't show me their hand, but they look at their hand and start pointing and trying to figure the lines, and I'm watching. I don't press them because I feel people should feel a little open. And there are other ways of telling if a person is open, so I'm kind of enjoying this. Out of all the metaphysical things I'm involved with, I really enjoyed this. Reading poems.
How long, you use the term parapsychology, which to me is very much kind of like 70s and 80s lingo for metaphysical things. So how long ago were you starting to be curious and look into studying it then?
Oh, okay. Well, then we have to go back to when I was much younger. That's when I first came upon this heading. I'm from Miami, and there were workshops going on at that time. But before the workshops, that was in my teens. Before the workshops, I noticed there was something about me that the experiences I had, this is before I was age 10, that my siblings did not have. Now, I came from a family that were very open to this because of my father. My mother had, we call them straight dreams, but dreams, it's just a terminology. These are dreams people have that the next day they'll find that there's some truth to the dream they can look for. So this is what they believed in. Their friends, my relatives, many of them were psychics or mediums or involved in something like that. So this was nothing foreign or something you move away from. This is just how we are. That was the atmosphere I grew up in. But I started experiencing things myself, seeing spirits, waking up to something. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't want it there. And to the point where I was afraid to go to sleep because I knew the times the spirits will come in. After midnight, usually around 12:30 a.m., at least for me. I can't speak for others. And until about 3 o'clock. Well, they didn't wait that long, but I tried. It never worked. My sister sleeping next to me. I would wake up and look at her. She's sound asleep. And I'm in the midst of all of this. So I went through that, and it frightened me because I didn't understand. Many times I'm running out of the bedroom telling my dad there's spirit in the room. And he'd go in the room, stay in the room for the rest of the night because I was not going in there. And I did not. So the next morning he would say, he didn't say anything. I said, did you see it? He didn't say anything. And I kept prodding him. Finally, there was nothing there. It had already left. He never put me down like, you didn't see anything. Never, no. It wasn't that kind of atmosphere. So this happened several times. So that's how I got involved. I wanted some answers, and the best answers I felt would go to people who aren't directly involved with this. Because with me, I was involved with music and other things like that, never in this. So I went to these workshops, and they were fascinating. I mean, really fascinating. I found I'm really interested in this. I want to learn more. I remember going to one class. The lady talked about parapsychology in more detail, explaining many aspects of it. It's a broad heading for metaphysics. Metaphysics, we're using that term more now, but parapsychology covers it all. You can think of it as the umbrella. Okay. Yes. So after class, I was getting my things ready to leave, and she came up to me. She says, your channel is open. I didn't know what she was talking about. Never heard that kind of talk before. And I looked at it. I said, what channel? She says, you need to close it. It's not good to have it open. I still didn't know what she's talking about. I said, well, what is a channel? She said, see someone that will help you. That's all I got from the lady. So I wondered what she meant. I didn't know. All the while I was a teenager, taking workshops, always interested in something new. And it wasn't until I got in my early 20s and I took more courses and I found out what the channel was. And I think that's one reason why I was seeing all these spirits and all these things coming in. I could feel their energy. Sometimes I feel them, and of course I saw them. So I learned to sit down, and that's when it stopped. Fortunately, I didn't get with any of those little terrible entities, the playful ones, I call them, tricksters. I never had that issue. But anyway, that's how I got involved, really interested in it. Now, I wasn't interested to the point of reading for anybody. That never occurred to me to do a reading. I felt, how do you do a reading? And I wasn't going to embarrass myself to say that I was a reader, but some things I need to know. I'd be called and asked about the hurricane that was coming. Is it coming here? Look inside and see if the hurricane is coming. My friends and family knew I could pick up things, and I remember there was a big one coming. And whenever they come from Africa, they have a long way to come and to grow and become more powerful. Well, we had one called Ivan. They called him Ivan the Terrible, and he was huge hurricane, very strong, over 150 miles per hour wind. So it was heading Florida. So I just sort of went to the atmosphere, and I saw how it was moving. It came below Florida, and then it came straight up. But it came on the west side of Florida. It didn't touch Florida. Oh, you're talking about a relief for the family. I didn't tell anybody else, But that was interesting, and it hit me. Maybe I can do this. Plus, I remember my brother, my second brother, was staff sergeant in the Air Force, and he was stationed over in Germany. And we expected him to come home in 69. I think it was, was it? I might be off in the year, but in the 1900s. Mm-hmm. And he was coming home. He had finished his work over there. And my godmother, who lived across the street, who was a psychic, like I said,
mm-hmm.
family, neighborhood, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So she read for my mother, and she says, I see your son is going to surprise you. He's coming home earlier than expected. So, and she says, now, don't worry. Everything is happening as it's supposed to happen. And that part didn't make too much sense. So we were just kind of looking for him, and he was supposed to come home, as far as we knew, in May. And one morning in February, I'll never forget, I was preparing to go to work, and I hear my dad say, no, not my son. And my mother was crying, and there was the gentleman for the armed forces who comes and tells you that your son is dead. He was killed. So that was very shocking. Okay, so we managed to get through that. We had to make preparations for the funeral, and my brother came to him, and he said, are you afraid? I said, no, I'm not afraid. I was scared to death, of course. So one morning when they were shipping his body here from Delaware, Dover, Delaware, that's where they send the bodies first, and then they ship to the home. I woke up, and my brother woke me up, the one who had passed, and said, tell Mama and Dad, they've got to check things before 3 o'clock. Remember, 3 o'clock, that would be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Check, things aren't going well. So I told my dad, and he believed me because, I would say things and they would come out okay. And there was another funeral home that was claiming his body. People do things like that. Oh. And if my dad hadn't called at 3, it would have been nothing he could have done about it because they were ready to ship him. So that was great. So that was another thing for me to say, well, you could do this. But I had concerts to get rid of. Not get rid of, to finish up.
To get out of your system.
And I didn't have time for this stuff. So anyway, I wasn't thinking about getting into it. I just continued what I was doing and enjoying that, looking for more. But toward the 90s, early 90s, well, actually it was in the 80s, I said, I feel I need to be doing something else. I don't know what it is, but I feel there's more I'm supposed to do. And that was the beginning of me changing fields and going into where I am now. So that's how I did it.